There's a strike that's happening pretty soon. Apparently, like the majority of the residential buildings in New York City are unionized. So, like, all of the doormen, all of the repairmen, all of the everybody involved, except for the building supers and the landlords themselves, are in a union. And there's a strike that's taking place sometime in April soon, I think. And of course, I'm absolutely 100% behind the strikers. Absolutely behind them. I stand for what they're doing, and I hope that they get what they deserve. I hope they get higher pay or benefits or whatever it is that they're striking for. It's definitely going to complicate my life, but I will take it, for the short time that it will be for them to make their point and hopefully get their raise. I'm not even really sure how my building is going to operate without them. That's going to be really complicated, but like I said, I'm behind them. Hope for the best. Hey, this is Owen. If you're comfortable, leave your first name and state at the sound of the tiny truck backing up.
Hi, Owen. This is Mike from Florida. You know, when I see these polls that say half of conservatives believe in QAnon or the stolen election, I just can't take that seriously because these people are nothing but trolls, and this is all just a playground insult fight to them. They don't care about the truth, and they don't really believe in anything except their own power and superiority. So they're not capable of communicating in good faith, and they will say anything to advance their agenda. So I don't take them seriously, but I'd like to know what you think. Thanks.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think that you're absolutely on point and correct about the politicians. I think that's true about the people at the top in leadership positions. I don't think it's true about the people. I think when we're dealing with like polling data, we're probably looking at like concentric circles. So the inner circle, the smallest one, is made up of QAnon true believers, people that call themselves digital soldiers, follow every Q post and have some of them memorized and all of that stuff. Believe that Trump is about to take down the cabal any day, so on and so forth. Then there's an outer circle who may believe a lot of that stuff, but they don't really call themselves digital soldiers. They maybe have a lot of friends that call themselves that. They're tangentially involved in the QAnon movement. And then another circle out is people who believe the election was stolen, don't call themselves digital soldiers or really know many people who do, and don't identify as QAnon, but definitely buy into a lot of conspiracy theories about the same stuff that QAnon believes. And then the final outer ring would be moderates who still want lower taxes and whatever other things moderates want. And I feel like everybody in the circle is getting sucked into the center. It's like each circle is kind of widening except for the moderate one. Everybody is going deeper into this belief system right now. That's the way it seems to me. And the reason that's happening is because the politicians, the leaders at the top, are espousing these terrible ideas and spreading these QAnon conspiracy theories intentionally to get attention, to try to build their voter base, to appeal to more people, things like that, to ride off of Trump's coattails. That's the way that I see it right now. I mean, and I have some data to back that up, but, it's hard to know for sure exactly how many are out there.
Okay, my name's Kevin. I recently had a debate with one of my friends over the Don't Say Gay bill, and we both live in Florida. And I just wanted to ask, because he grew up in like a more like conservative Christian family, and he at the end of it he was kind of talking about like he loved the hater, but he loved the love the sinner, hate the sin. And I was wondering, like, how do you deal with somebody who is a good person, but I feel like they're kind of like stuck in these like harmful really views from their parents that since they grew up in that household. Thank you.
It's really complicated sometimes to try to pull somebody out of it. And the first thing you have to do is to recognize that there's a distinct possibility that you may not be able to do anything. Go into it with no expectations, but hopes. Hoping that you may be able to help them see reason. When you're entering a conversation with these people, You should enter it in an inquisitive way, with an inquisitive disposition. Don't make them feel like they're attacked, because if they do feel that way, they're just going to shut down and the conversation is over. There's no more progress that's going to be made. So try to be non-confrontational. Don't let them feel that they're being attacked, and just kind of poke little holes and ask in an inquisitive way for more information, and just poke holes in it as you go. You know, they present you with something and they say, I believe that this blah, 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 I believe the election was stolen. And you ask for evidence of that. Like, well, that's concerning. Like, tell me, why do you think that? Like, what do you got? Show me something. Of course, the natural reaction is, well, I don't have evidence exactly. So they try to base everything off of emotions, generally. They'll say things like, I just know that's true. I just know it. Like, you think you can trust Biden to blah, blah, blah? Well, no, I don't think I can trust Biden, but I need to know. I want to know if what you believe is true, and if you're right, I want to be right too. So let's look at the evidence together. Do you have any for me? Ultimately, they don't have any evidence for the vast majority of the claims that they make. I mean, I'm talking like QAnoner or slightly less extreme than that, those types of people. So you just have to poke holes one after the other, slowly but surely, and don't let them feel like they're being attacked, basically. That's the technique.
Owen, after couple of years of watching you and calling you 3 times a day, I finally sort of figured out something with Enlow today.
He's talking about Johnny Enlow. Yeah, he calls me pretty frequently, and I skim through them. I don't play every clip or every voicemail that he leaves, because some of them aren't even intended to be played on air. But if they're under 30 seconds, I'm going to listen to it. I always listen to the ones at least under 30 seconds, sometimes under 45 seconds or a minute.
And that's that these guys spend a ridiculous amount of time creating a problem that doesn't exist, rather than using their brains to work on some of the very real problems that do exist. And it's like, that's why it's so hard to understand, my friend. Thanks, bye.
Yeah, absolutely get where you're coming from. These people like Johnny Enlow do tend to sometimes literally cry about issues that don't exist. Like they're living through they're going to cause themselves to have PTSD because they're sitting here living through this horrific scenario that they've built up in their mind that's completely fabricated. But that's the thing. In their mind, it is real. To them, it is real, even if it's fake, on a reality level, with the rest of society. Even if it's completely fake, to them it's real. To them, the election really was stolen. To them, they really are being oppressed for being Christians. This stuff is real in their heads. And whether it's real to everybody else or not, it can still affect them the same way as if it were real to them. And for that reason, they have a tendency to get very worked up and emotional about a lot of this stuff. Unjustifiably, of course, but it does still happen. It is the strangest thing to watch.
Hey, Owen, this is Jordan from South Carolina. I've called in a couple of times, man, and just wanted to call, hope you and the family and everybody's doing well. Reason for my call is I just wanted any advice you might have, since you're a father and I'm a somewhat recently new father. My little girl just turned 2. Any advice on raising a kid in a secular household? I grew up in a religious household myself, not Jehovah's Witness, but Southern Methodist, Baptist, and all of that fun mess. So yeah, any advice at all that you would have, man, I'd really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the phone call. Well, there are a couple of concerns to think about. I do have a kid, and I did raise that kid to be secular, like me. So here's the first concern. Is there anybody in their life that is going to try to shove religion down their throats? If there is, it's a totally different conversation. You're going to have to really drill home critical thinking skills and try to counter the propaganda that they're shoving down their throats and things like that. Assuming that there isn't somebody who's going to be doing that, assuming that they are just a normal kid who isn't going to be exposed to extreme propaganda, my one piece of advice is to teach them basic critical thinking skills. That's number one. And number two, explain this stuff deeply to them at some age. Probably not early, probably 10, 11, 12 maybe, because that's usually the age at which they can see through BS. But at some point, it would be useful to the kid to understand how church works, like procedurally, like how do you walk into a church? How do you sit down in a church? What do they do when they sing their hymns? Like who is singing and why, and how do they pick these people, and what's a church deacon? Like I never learned all of that stuff being a Jehovah's Witness. I lived in a totally different culture, and that it socially crippled me in some ways because I was working with people who were talking about stuff that I just straight up didn't understand. Being an ex-Jehovah's Witness, it could be useful at some age, 10, 11, 12, even 15 or 16, for somebody to sit down and explain how all of this is structured so they don't miss out on this cultural thing, so that they can at least understand this cultural thing, in my opinion. Aside from all of that, always teach critical thinking skills from day one. That's the number one thing that you can do. Here's an email from Athena. It says, "Hi Telltale, I'm an ex-Catholic and I've been a fan of your channel for a few months now. I received a letter and pamphlet from a JW today and I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Based on what you've said on your channel, it sounds like the person hit the usual talking points, juxtaposing the current suffering on Earth with the idea of paradise, but I wondered if there's anything that jumps out to you. I was also wondering why the person refers to God as God and not Jehovah. I'm guessing it's just to avoid confusion for those unfamiliar with that name, but I know that the true name of God is also a core belief for them. Thank you so much. I appreciate all that you do to spread the truth about religious cults, etc. Athena." Yeah, thank you for the email. Yeah, absolutely. That is why they said God and not Jehovah. They don't want to kind of scare you away before they even rope you in, basically. They wanted to avoid confusion. They wanted to avoid scaring people away because some people have a hard stance on the name of God, and yeah, they didn't want to risk anything. As for the letter, it's actually really hard to read for me because it's kind of scribbles and stuff, but if anybody wants to read it, then they can feel free to. If you want to pause this clip or whatever, then feel free. That's the front. This is the back, scribbled out the name, and this is the pamphlet they sent. I've seen a lot of these. In fact, I think I probably passed some of these out back in the day. But anyway, thank you so much for the email. I appreciate it. That is very interesting. Next email is from BrawGirlEnergy420. I believe they're in the chat right now. Sorry if there's an email limit. This is my second. There is not an email limit, FYI. Feel free to email as many times as you want. Know that you may be at risk of it going into spam automatically if you send too many. Just Gmail does that sometimes. But you haven't hit the limit, obviously, because it reached me. I had a few questions regarding the governing body of the JWs. How many are there? Have you ever met one? What is your opinion of them as a JW? And now, Jehovah's Witnesses governing body members are way more in the public eye now than they were when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I didn't even know who they were. I had no idea. I think the information was available through like one of their publications or something, but they really didn't publicize who they were until, I don't know, 2010, 11, 12, somewhere in there. Then they really started coming out into the public eye and making their name known and all that stuff. There are 8 of them. I don't know that I can name all of them. I think there's Sanders, Samuel Hurd, David Splain, Tony Morris. That's 4. Sanders may not even be right. There are 8. Hang on. Let me just look now that I'm thinking about it. Yeah, okay. Kenneth Cook, Samuel Hurd, Jeffrey Jackson, Stephen Lett, Garrett Loesch, Tony Morris, Mark Sanderson, and David Splain. Those are the governing body members. I knew I was missing some obvious ones. Stephen Lett, how did I forget him? Anyways, yeah, I didn't have much of an opinion on them at all when I was a Jehovah's Witness because they weren't public. But now they are, obviously. And a lot of people, from what I've heard in the religion, have their own favorite governing body member. My mom's favorite is Tony Morris because he's a Vietnam veteran, and so is my mom. They have that in common. Jehovah's Witnesses aren't allowed. They're complete pacifists. They aren't allowed to take part in war or military anything at all. So it's not common you find a Vietnam veteran. Anyway, yeah, I've never met one before. I think that answers your last question. Wouldn't mind it, though. I'd have a few choice questions for him.